1, 2, 3, clap. I started the timer. I remembered to start the timer. That's some forethought there.
I'm very proud of you.
Hi, and welcome to Hey Buddy, Nice Podcast. Over there in Scotland, stewing in the juices of things that they don't want to talk about, and we shan't. That's Brogan Hastings.
And never mentioning that subject again is Wayne Giovinazzi.
Well, I was going to say, what subject should I not mention? But we're aware of what that subject is. No one else is. I mean, one other person might be aware because they're sitting here as well, looking at
We're
this
not
like...
allowed to talk about the fact that I failed the AML exam, okay?
What are you doing? You're allowed to talk about it. I'm not. Okay, that's fair enough.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, cool. So, would you care to elaborate?
I failed, okay? And I failed by 7% and I'm fucking pissed off.
I think it's like driving tests. I'm going out there, I'm saying it. It's like a driving test. At least in WA, Australia, no one passes their driving test first go now because it's a money-making scheme. Did you have to pay to sit this test?
Yes. And
There
I'll
you
have
go.
to pay to resit.
Point
But
proved.
I won't. The company will. But...
And here, with the inside goss, we have special guest, Jobeth, a.k.a. Judge Mentalist, to tell us what the deal is with this money-making scheme. Jobeth, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I think that covers us all. Yeah, there's that. I don't know about a test being rigged specifically to make sure everybody fails, but the first time through, but it definitely, I'm sure they're not upset to grab the extra fees. That is, at least over here in the States, very much a thing of where can we just bleed you dry?
Yeah.
Left, right, up, down.
Okay.
It's a very US-centric course as well, I noticed. It's like, what does this part of the Patriot Act say? And I'm like,
What?
I'm not joking. There are like literal questions on that. I mean, it gave me a breakdown at the end, and the section that I really passed, everything that was like, how do you apply this? What do you do in this situation? I passed. Everything that was like, what does this specific part of this act, what does this group do? What does this thing do? I'm like, I don't know. But, I know that certain groups, I'm going to get really technical here. The Wolfsburg group is about banks. The Yates memo is about looking at the person, just a crime. Stuff like that. I know that. But I don't know what specific lines and what specific parts do for each act.
Did you have to quote, Section A, whatever? I don't know.
It's multiple
legal
choice.
terms.
It's multiple choice.
Okay.
Which is somehow worse and somehow okay because, you get those answers that are really, really close.
Did they have questions that would try to trip you up? Sure, they're not trying to make you fail, but with questions that can trip you up, say for a stupid, no winning answer. I like to have relations with animals, and then the options are sometimes or frequently.
Yeah, I mean, there was one question that was what's the most high-risk form of buying something? It was to do with transfer money, and the options were cash, credit, wire transfer, or cryptocurrency. And I'm like, well, it's either crypto or wire transfer.
Yeah. I would have said 10 years ago, I would have said wire transfer. Nowadays,
I think I said crypto first, and then when I went back, I switched to wire transfer. There was a lot of questions later on about wire transfers and how risky they were, which may have been a mistake. I don't know.
Well, anyway, this has been perfect introductory Seg A talk for our guest today, who we haven't really mentioned up until now. I mean, people who listen to Hey Buddy Nice Podcast, I assume know who Jobeth is. I think that's fair, right, Brogan?
I think so.
It covers
I often
me.
say Jobeth.
Yeah,
I listen to Hey Buddy Nice Podcast, and I know who I am.
That's pretty good. That
Some
means you're
small
saving
sample
some.
set, but
Yeah, you're saving money on therapy then, I guess, if you truly know yourself.
Well,
Don't let pod therapy know.
certainly not paying for any, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I do need to get one of those T-shirts. My other therapist is a podcast, because it's my only therapist is a podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jobeth comes to us from multiple avenues, but the one that we like to talk about is from... now, I every second time I say the name of the podcast, I get it wrong, but it is Big Sexy Digital Nomad, or is it just referred to as Digital Nomad?
Big Sexy Digital Nomad.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So it's Now, is it named after the namesake of your co-host, Big Sexy, or is it that the podcast is also Big Sexy like Big Sexy?
No, it's him, and it's we're following his journey that is, I guess, technically has begun because he is now no longer residing in Las Vegas. He's got, I want to say, 4 more weeks. I believe it probably times up with another journey that you guys are aware of pretty closely, give or take a week, without spoiling anything. Where he will start
I think everyone knows everything now.
But yeah, he will do a cross-country trek that will bring him back through Vegas. In fact, I believe that the plans are for all of us to meet up at some point in time. And then various other places throughout the U.S., working his way through Miami, Florida, where they are hopping on a 14 or 15-day cruise. I should know this because we just mentioned this specifically in the last episode re-recorded, but whatever. The old adage, when as somebody that is podcasting, the moment that record button stops, you forget everything that you just talked about. He is doing a transatlantic, or he and his wife are doing a transatlantic cruise over to Barcelona, and then they will be no longer in the US. I believe that they're going to spend some time. And again, I think that they've got a plan. I think that they are flexible in that plan, and that plan may change over time, which is kind of part of what the real crux of that podcast is, about his travel journeys, my travel journeys. Because I travel a lot. I have a house, I stay here. But I am all over the place between some of the many hats that I wear, and just from wanting to be other places and all over the place. So get a little travel me and travel him, and yeah.
Speaking of Big Sexy going on a boat, not the only one going on a boat. Like, I believe that, how many hours now until you are departing on the sea?
We will leave my house for the terminal in 6 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay. We have to get through this podcast then. Business or pleasure or both?
It is technically on paper just pleasure. However, I have every intention of doing more of what I did the last time I was there. So this is a Carnival Cruise Line, and I guess it's a smaller ship, and I'm new to cruising. So I'm figuring all this out as we go along. So a lot of the ships will have like a stage magician or mentalist performer, a couple nights during the cruise. I don't believe this one does. What they have is somebody whose official job title is table artist. And what they are is a strolling magician. They are to go into the dining rooms and go table to table. I had never, on the first cruise that I went on, which was actually just back in December. And it was, oddly enough, it was doing the podcast with Big Sexy and talking about cruising, and him just kind of pushing me, being like, you need to go, you need to cruise, and then I was like, okay, fine. And for me, the issues were always a scheduling thing. So I literally just shared my calendar with my travel agent and said, find something that works, bro. And he gave me some options, and one did. And so I never ran into this, quote, table artist in the dining room. I would always run into him in various other places throughout the ship, because that also is what you do, is just walk up to people and, hey, can I show you something? We being my wife and I were, I believe, maybe in the casino at the time or whatever, but I'd given her the heads up, hey, if you see this guy again, let me know. Like, if we're somehow not side by side, because I want to chat with him. And I'm in the casino. We were in the casino, and I don't know what I know what it was. Down in the kids' arcade, there was this claw machine with these little rubber ducks in. And anytime she had the opportunity, she would just run down there and just come back with like handfuls of ducks. Like, it's ludicrous. And in fact, I'll probably post some pictures on social media throughout the week, because I know damn well, while I'm thinking of certain things on this cruise, she's thinking about that claw machine with those ducks.
Thinking about ducks, just like Jacob.
Ooh, that's an idea. Maybe we'll have to parse off some of those and take them to Vegas the next time I'm there. So she comes back in, with less ducks in her hand than I'm used to. And she's like, hey, the guy's out there. Come on. So I go and
Less ducks than you are used to.
Yes. I mean, normally she would come back with like 30 ducks or something.
Like, what the hell is this? You go back and you get more ducks.
No, that's not a command that I need to give. That was just, it's going to eventually happen anyway. So I don't know. Her
honey,
and duck
sorry,
claw machines.
I'm off my duck game. I just couldn't hit those ducks today. I've got the yips or something. I don't know what it is, but I just could not perform.
Yeah, she nuts with the ducks. And they're all different colors and different sizes, and some of them are like block-headed, like they're coming from Minecraft and whatever others. It's just a random assortment of shit in that machine. All duck or duck-ish in the setup, but so I go out and I start talking to the guy because I'm like, what is your job? How does it work? Basically it's hey, how do I get this job? Not that I would want it as a full-time job. I can't do that, but I would love it if somebody paid me 4 or 5 times a year. I see a hand up. Is this the procedure here?
Yeah. I've got a question. Would you trade in all the ducks in the world to have that job? Just on a part-time basis?
I mean, my desire to have these ducks just sitting around, I mean, can we make that happen?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, you're willing to give up these ducks at the sacrifice at anyone else's pleasure and happiness. That's what I'm hearing.
Understand this. By virtue of the deal that you are presenting, inevitably my wife will end up back on a cruise and we'll just restock those ducks. So
this is a win-win-win.
It is inevitable. Like easy come, easy go, and those will be replaced quickly.
The contract is in the post.
The whole the duck thing started the New Year's Eve of 2019 into 2020. So just before the world went to shit, and we were locally just at some bar with friends that own a restaurant in town, but we were at a different establishment, and there was a duck claw machine there that she just kept, we were up at kind of like, there were 4 of us at the corner of a bar and hanging out, and then every so often she'd disappear and she'd come back with more ducks and come back with more ducks. And this particular machine was filled with ducks that were the different colors that associated with a NFL, American football team, and then it would have the logo on it. Yep. So now it becomes a collection, a scavenger hunt. Which one am I missing? Can I go get it? And that's how they get you.
They know what they're doing. Claw machines.
Circling back to that theme of these scams to just get you to keep coming back in and giving money. The duck claw machine is no different. Definitely on a smaller scale.
Organized by the same people who set up that test for Brogan, I think.
Yeah, clearly. So what I'm hearing is if we see any claw machines in Vegas that we want a prize from, your wife is the person to call.
I don't know that she's... I think
she's determined.
Specifically with the duck claw machines, like, let's put it this way. Yeah. If for whatever reason Brogan were to be in Vegas and be walking through the Rio, and all of a sudden there was a duck claw machine, and buried midway near the bottom, there was one that looked like Teller. You could commandeer my wife, and you might throw $100 at it because time, and you got to get all the ducks that are on top of Teller out of there. She would commit. She would. She is. I don't know that she's familiar with the term commitment, but when it comes to finding a specific duck in that claw machine, she definitely gets it in her heart.
I've never wanted anything so badly in my life as Penn and Teller ducks.
Wonder if they exist.
I've seen Penn and Teller ducks. I'm sure of it.
Shut up.
You know those like collector ducks? I don't know if they're the exact same. I think it might have been someone rendered them, is what it was. Like they don't exist. Like how people make their own pop vinyls. Yeah.
And that's
they need pop vinyls as well.
That's a little bit more difficult of a task than making the tarot cards a reality. That very much the resources are there to, will it into existence, which of course we did. But the ducks, that's a different level of where do you even get a duck made?
What are they called? These ducks, collectible pop vinyl ducks, tubs. Yeah. Penn Teller tubs. Just doing some Google foo. No, they don't exist.
No,
Yet.
I have looked because I've seen I have seen where you can make your own personal Funko Pops.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do they have the facilities like Teller? No, they do not, is the answer.
Come on. I think...
So the make your own, is the engine to set that up, not upload art? It's more like when you're in a video game, let's say like a Skyrim, of like which hair and how squishy do you want the face to be and how big do you want the eyes to be, and you have to sit within their construct, and sometimes you can get close to something and sometimes it's just whatever.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing, if I really want it, I'll have to commission somebody on Etsy to do it. Maybe Sarah.
I tell you what, when I'm in LA, in undisclosed time, the Funko store is there. I tried to go there, but they are only open like 3 days a week or something. Man, don't get me started with some of these stores in American times of opening. I could not wrap my head around it. But they have the facilities to create your own Funko Pops, and I will FaceTime you or whatever and say, all right, tell me which hair you think looks best on this pop vinyl for Teller. Tell me which eyes you think look best. Tell me what else you want on this. And
I'm surprised that they don't have their own actual licensed Funko Pops yet. I mean, they have everything else.
I'm very surprised. Yeah, I mean, the fact that there's not a magic line for Funko, like a David Copperfield one, or like Siegfried and Roy, because you could get the mini tigers to go with it.
The little Monticore.
Yeah.
It just attaches onto his face.
Yeah, the best we've got are the Simpsons figures.
I endorse that idea because as somebody who, in a very part-time basis, I guess it would be fair to describe this as runs a magic venue. I don't know that really rises to that level, but you know what I mean. We have these monthly shows here. I often talk to people who love the idea of what we're doing. And then we have the conversation, because the struggle is always making sure that we fill all the seats. And it's less of a money thing, although the performers are generally paid a percentage of the door. So for them, it's definitely a money thing. But you want all of those seats filled. And we've had fantastic performers in there, not the least of which being the very real Matt Donnelly. But others that when the seats are not filled, I'm sitting there being like, and watching the performer and seeing how great they are, being like, y'all fucked up. But the biggest problem and where that comes is that there are preconceptions of what a magician is, and they're a little different for everybody. Some people think that they're just for kids, or they're thinking of birthday party magicians, or whatever it might be. And there's not really, there's so much noise in the world now as far as getting ideas out there and what's going on with social media and the internet, that conveying a concise message is difficult. And I tell people all the time, I said, look, if we were to walk up and down the street, and poll 10 people, poll 100 people about, name me a magician that's not David Copperfield or Penn and Teller. What are they going to tell us? Maybe they know who Piff is. They're not going to know who Matt King is, most likely, as great as he is. He's not a everyday on the street name unless you're in the world. If you're in the world, you know who the hell he is. Of course you do.
Oh, yeah.
So something like a Funko Pop line would be fantastic. Something like, I don't know, somebody developing tarot cards with pictures and illustrations of a bunch of famous magicians would be great. Hell, there's even an R.J. Owens card in one of those,
Exactly.
which I used last Thursday as a moment to plug his show. As I'm flipping through these, there's plenty of people in here that you might recognize, Penn and Teller, Piff the Magic Dragon. Matt Donnelly, the Mind Noodler. Have you guys heard of him? This is me opening for Matt, doing this little bit. And then I'm like, this one here, everybody's got to know about this one. This is our May performer. So I literally, in the middle of my performance, have an aside that is like one of your little unannounced ad breaks in my magic show. And I'm like, here, this is May. You need to buy these tickets before you leave here today because they're going to go fast. And the tough thing with RJ is he's not full-time doing magic. So you can't, it is difficult to even hop onto YouTube and find performance videos of RJ because they just don't exist. No matter, and that is no reflection on the level of performer that he is, because he's been locked up in the golden handcuffs for 11 or 12 years as Bebe Francois over there kicking ass on the Mystère stage.
Yeah, that gigantic snail drives a hard whip. A lot of constraints. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that giant snail, but that's for my own issues, not to do with the hard bargain it runs.
little Wayne trauma there.
Yeah, I almost touched a slug nut last night, and it was not good. It was not good.
You almost.
It was coming right at me. I was sitting on a wall, and this is in Joondalup, near the old TAFE that I used to go to. So for those listening at home, it was in a suburb of Western Australia at a college that I used to go to. And we're sitting on a wall. There's like big lake area, fountains and shit, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden I see this weird thing next to me, and it was the slug. And I don't know. I deleted the photos because I didn't even want it on my phone. And I think the slug had 2 heads.
Ooh. It's coming right for me. I mean, a very South Park line anyway, but you know.
It wouldn't turn around.
They don't move that fast. How did you know it was moving?
I was sat there. It wasn't there when I sat down. Sure, it was dark. Oh, Wayne, maybe you didn't see it. No, that's not the case. It just wasn't there. So it had to make its way up this wall. And it's not just a wall. It's like a step where you're meant to sit and then the wall. So unless it fell out of a tree, I guess that's possible.
So here's my recommendation for you. And I'm not going to connect all the dots here. But
okay,
when you were in Vegas and you were hanging out with one of your many magic friends, if you have the opportunity to say, hey, can you teach me a trick? The trick that you need to request to be taught is a salt pour. And it may come in handy in more ways than you know.
I don't want to hurt the slug.
I'm not connecting all of the dots for you. I'm suggesting nothing. Just it might be a good trick to start with. There's some very fundamental magical principles that exist within that routine. It may be a good one to start with.
See, the problem I have is, though, I am connecting the dots. The problem I have is when I do pour the salt onto the slug, now I don't know, because I don't remember if I meant to pick up the salted slug with my right hand and throw it over my left shoulder, or pick it up with my left hand and throw it over my right shoulder. So that would be troublesome.
You and the Australian fucking wildlife. I don't get it.
There were also ducks at this place, right? And as a kid,
everything comes back to ducks.
I was taught that ducks, sure, they eat stale bread that you feed them, but they also eat slugs. None of these ducks came to my rescue.
They were just watching you. Maybe they thought you were a giant duck. It's like, nah, this giant duck's got it.
Why? What is duck like of me besides my big yellow bill?
I mean, I'm not saying that you look like a duck. I'm saying like the same way that cats just think we're giant kittens or giant cats.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, no, that's a weird looking duck, but it's giant, so it must, it knows what's going on.
Oh, what I'm hearing is I am the king duck. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
King of the ducks.
Cool. Yep. So how often are you not at home doing endeavors?
It really varies, but I would say that there's very rarely a 2-month consecutive span in which I am not on an airplane at one point in time.
Really? That's a fair bit. Then are you venturing out by yourself, or does the family come along, or do you try to work that, or is it just this is work, so I'm gonna go and do it?
It's a mixed bag. I if I can, I will blend the pleasure into business and vice versa. There have been business trips that I've taken. A couple of years ago, we were doing some NFL stuff down in Orlando, and our meetings with players was done by like 10 a.m. And I went to my partner and I was like, bro, we got to go to Disney World. Let's go. We got the rest of the day. There's nothing better to do. So there's no shortage of that.
There's no choice.
Yeah. And I'm always like, when I will go someplace that is new to me, explore out, I'm there for a certain purpose, but you're not doing whatever you're doing 24 hours a day while you're there. So what else can we kind of get ourselves into while we're here? What cool things are here? Is there a magic shop? Is there a magic theater? Is there whatever? So that kind of, I definitely blend the lines together as much as I possibly can. But yeah, it's I mean, just kind of give you an example. Going on this cruise today, that's 7 days. I come back early March. I leave for Vegas end of March into early April. Then I'm home, and then let's see, I get home the 3rd of April, and then I fly back to Vegas on the 23rd of April.
Oh, wow.
And then I don't think I'm back in Vegas till August, at least planned right now. But that's not, Vegas isn't the only place I go. That's just a place that, for a variety of reasons, I'm there numerous times a year. Probably, I'd say the average is probably like 8 or 9 for various reasons. Many of them magic, but it's there. I guess technically the last week of July is a travel week for me, but it's kind of localish because Matt and I are doing shows that run from DC up through Pennsylvania, north of Philly. But we've got a few of the shows locked down in the New England area for the end of June. I have not determined. It's too early for me to determine whether I'm going to fly up there or I got to figure out what he did with his card stab table after the Red Bank shows. Because it's always, so we've had Matt out twice to Elkton, and it's always hey, can you make me another one of those tables? Because that does not travel well. It's like a 3-foot tall wooden table, and it's got to be
piece of wood. Yeah,
it's got to be a certain,
to be stabbed.
Right. Yeah, that knife has to stick into it. And so I've made 2 of those so far. So I'm trying to figure out, hey, am I going to make one down here? Does America's Favorite Public Defender have it? And I need to roll through Jersey, which would actually be on the way. So it would not be super out of the way if I were to, because we're doing right now, there are 2 shows that are set. My goal is to put at least 5 of them on the calendar in basically a long weekend, maybe like a Wednesday through Sunday. So to drive up there and then not have to rent a car to get from place to place, because we'll be going from Maine to Schenectady, New York, which is a city not far outside of Albany, which is the capital of New York, and probably try to hit Vermont and New Hampshire, try to hit as many states as we can. And, having that with us is, we're not going to make a new table in every city. That's for sure.
I think it comes down to the very real Matt Donnelly just being lazy and not willing to learn a new skill and making his own tables.
Well, it's not the making the table, although the table that he's got in Vegas, which I believe is actually in probably somewhere between Indianapolis and Akron, Ohio right now because of the Fuller's Live tour. I believe Jacob made that one. And
wouldn't surprise me.
I have not seen that table in person, but I would imagine that its construction value is much better than mine. But the other benefit, now that we're having this conversation, because I didn't think this all through before, if America's Favorite Public Defender does have the table and I drive up there in June, pick that up and we use that, I then can drive that home and have that same table for the 10-day run that we have in July. So now I need to inquire about where that table went, because it's also very possible that he just left it there in Red Bank. So, worst case scenario, I make another one. It was, I don't know, it'll be my 3rd one now. This one might be even better than before.
Yeah. You know what you're doing now. You've got the practice in.
I mean, I haven't made 10,000 tables, but we're getting closer. We're getting closer.
But has it been 10,000 hours worth of making tables?
I'd say it might be somewhere around an hour and a half now, because making the second one definitely took less time than the first one.
What I'm hearing is by the time you get up to like the 10th or 3rd table, you'll be able to knock them out in about 14 and a half seconds using that decreasing scale of speed.
I definitely think there's a stopping point in there, which it does not continue to increase or decrease.
I'm not a physicist or construction artist or nothing, so you might be right.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure.
I do believe,
but...
Brogan, I do believe physicists are saying, what are they saying?
Time does not exist.
Yeah, there we go.
So what you're
I
saying
still think that should be a t-shirt.
is that if I have to make another table in June, it's already done?
Yes.
That. See, that's, my mind is, yep. I can't, it's gone, nothing left. The end of show,
That
I
feels
think.
like a question that only Paul Mattingly could answer.
Well, Matt can
Yeah,
answer
but
it too, because if America's favorite public, why is that such a tongue twister?
Dave Donnelly, America's favorite
If
public
Dave
defender.
Donnelly has that table, then yes, it's already made.
This is I think therefore I am kind of sounding. It's like if Dave Donnelly has it, then it is made.
If he has it, they will come.
Yeah.
Choking to death. So what I have heard in passing on other podcasts and stuff about I don't know if what you can talk about, but what it is that you do NFL wise, what exactly it is.
So I am a licensed certified NFL agent, which basically means there are rules within the NFL because it's also a cash grab like everything else in the world. We've got a theme and we're sticking to it today. So if you are not a certified NFL agent or a player themselves, you cannot negotiate a contract with an NFL team. That NFL team will get fined a ton of money. It's not worth it. So players are welcome to represent themselves. It's a foolish idea. Or they have to have a certified contract advisor, which is what the technical title is. There's about 800
Johnny
of them.
Football. So Johnny Football can't just get his friend Greg around the corner to come and represent him to try and negotiate unless Greg is certified.
Correct. Yeah. And that comes to the tune of once you are, it is fairly expensive to become a certified NFL agent, but then each year you renew, it costs you another $1,500 to the Players Association, another $1,000 or so in insurance premiums for liability insurance. And it's a money racket, very much so. And so basically the most basic level of what we do is we recruit players. And when I say we, I'm speaking both as any other contract advisor that exists out there, but also there's a group that I work with, which has grown in this past year, where we will be in touch with players that are in college playing football that we believe, whether that be through our own observation or through talking to NFL scouts, that this player has a chance of making it onto an NFL team. And we will recruit them and try to get them to hire us to represent them. We make sure that the training that they do, another cash grab, we will spend money sending these cats to a training facility for 8 to 10 weeks between the end of their college career and before the next next week is when these pro days, where each of their schools will invite in the NFL scouts. It's a certain day. They run what we call the underwear Olympics, because they strip down into basically their underwear, and they will run, a 40-yard dash, and it'll be timed, and they'll do these other agility drills. They'll just run around the field having balls thrown at them, and it's a little bit different depending on which position they're in or intend to play. And then the draft is the last weekend of April generally, and it is again this year.
Not in Vegas this year, I don't think.
It is not in Vegas this year. My limited attendance at Scoop Fest 2022 was largely in part to the NFL draft, which was the primary reason that I was in Vegas. This year, since we've grown the group, I'm going to be in Vegas again doing Magic stuff, and I'm not going to be at the draft this year. I'm just going to get blown up all day with text messages. So and so is got drafted here, and such and such team is interested in so and so. And because what happens is, what everybody sees on TV are, if should you choose to watch it, and I don't know that anybody that's not in the business watches the later rounds. Most people will watch like that first round that's televised on Thursday night or whatever. Super exciting TV. but they monetize it and they put a bunch of commercials on it and people watch it. But after there's 7 rounds of the draft, which basically there's a pecking order. The teams get to pick of the remaining players, and then they are basically, it takes a signature, but they're basically under contract with that team. Not only because they can't go play anywhere else if they get drafted with a team. And as of the last collective bargaining agreement, which is basically the governing between players in the league, every single draft pick as a rookie is slotted an amount of money. So it's not even like, hey, I want an extra $1 million to come play for you. No, you're getting the amount of money that corresponds with your draft slot. So the only thing that you could do is kind of negotiate around, hey, I want more of the money up front. I want more of the money on the back end. I want it in year 2. You can do that kind of stuff. But for the most part, there's not a ton of negotiating. Really what we do in those first contracts is just pump our guys to the teams and try to, evaluate. And then the process after that is we're constantly tracking the rosters of every NFL team, whether they've shown interest in our player or not, and the depth at that particular position. That way, as we get into the 6th round, teams who are interested in our players that might not get drafted start calling, say, hey, is there interest? Is he here? Who else is calling about him? Do you think he's going to get drafted? And typically, as we get into the middle of the 7th round, which is the last round, this is such exciting podcasting to the number of sports ball listeners that I know that you guys must have, because I understand a lot of the progeny of your listenership has to come from the ICS crowd, but there's probably one or two who give a shit, right? So here you go, behind the scenes, we pretty much know, hey, if my guy does not get drafted, this is by like the middle of the 7th round, if this guy does not get drafted, we're going to sign him with that team. And so
it's like if we're not married by we're like 35,
it is exactly that.
Let's just do it. Yep.
It is exactly that. So, and what happens in the NFL is when by the end of that weekend, and when I say end of that weekend, I mean like within 3 hours of the end of the draft, each of those teams' rosters is 90 players. And by the time that the NFL season starts, either in late August or September, depending on how the schedule falls, they are down to 53, soon to be 55 players. So a lot of those people get cut. They have this I don't know what other sports would call it, but they have a cadre of players that are on what they call the practice squad. Yeah, that number fluctuates because of it was expanded in the COVID years, and we're still not certain whether that's going to be expanded or not. But there's a number of players who are making less money that are not on the official team, but they are locked down by the team. Basically, They practice with them if somebody's injured or gets COVID, which is less and less of a thing. Then they get elevated before the game week. So overall, of the original 90 players, about 70 per team are making some money with that team throughout the year.
So No, you go.
Has anybody ever been drafted to a team and they're like, I don't want to play for that team, like unwillingly drafted? So
there not only has been that, but there has been controversy where ahead of the draft, so if you go back to I don't remember what year it is, but Matt Donnelly certainly would. Eli Manning, who was the younger brother of the great Peyton Manning, and Eli was all right himself. I don't know that he's going to make the Hall of Fame, but he's won 2 Super Bowls thanks to the New England Patriots and people catching footballs with their helmet. He was that year, I want to say it was like 04 or 07, something like that. Again, Matt would probably know with instant recall as a Giants fan. He was projected to be the first pick of the NFL draft. And that year, the San Diego Chargers had the first pick in the draft. And for whatever reason, he was like, fuck no, if you draft me, I'm not playing there. So an arrangement was, but still had this diva mentality of I want to be the first pick of the draft. Yeah. So somehow orchestrated a trade between the Giants and the Chargers of that draft pick to make sure that he went somewhere that he wanted to go. Yeah, it was some shit.
Because typically, first draft pick is like the worst performing team from the previous season. Is that right? Or something along those lines?
Unless trades have been made, that is the convention. In fact, it is the Super Bowl winner. I think I could say that word. And if not, you guys will get in trouble, not me.
The big game winner.
The winner of the big game will get the 32nd pick in the next year's draft, which there's 32 teams. So the last pick, the runner up. So the Philadelphia Eagles will have pick 31, so on and so forth. The worst team in the league the previous year, which I believe is the Chicago Bears this year, get the first pick. Unless, of course, they've made trades and everything like that, which happens far more than you would probably imagine. And they will trade picks 2 years from now. So like you'll see, and as it gets closer to the draft, you'll see more of this where, so-and-so has been traded to that team for, a first round pick from this year and a second round pick from that year. So there are draft picks in the future that have already moved. So
it's not just based trading draft picks isn't based on incoming group of guys who you might want to pick. It's just for the sake of having a next year draft pick, even though it's not the upcoming season. And Joe Football, who's the number one prospect, sure, we're not getting him this year, but who knows who it's going to be next year, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a crapshoot because you're the better that the team that you trade with does in the future, the worse your bargain gets. So there's Baltimore's quarterback Lamar Jackson is in the last. His contract is technically up, and I'm not going to get too much in the weeds here, but the Baltimore Ravens, the team he plays for, have the ability to basically lock him down for at least one more year, really two, but that gets a little antsy. It is rumored that, and there's so many rumors surrounding this because he's a player who has not signed a contract. He also does not have an agent, so that complicates matters more. It is rumored that they may lock him down or give him what they call the franchise tag for another season. And they basically that gives a team the ability to force a contract on the player for one more year. And there's certain timeframes in which they can do that and other timeframes that they can't. Again, we're not going to get into the details. They get good money. They take the top 5 players' contracts for that year at that position and average them, and that's what the guy makes. So he probably makes more money. I mean, he'll make more money than, let's see, 32 minus 5 is 27. He'll make more money than 27 other players at that position that year. So it's not the worst thing to happen. Yeah. But it's rumored that they will trade him to another team that he would be a fit at. Well, if he does well at that other team, and that trade includes draft picks, the bargain gets worse for the Ravens. If he goes there and lays an egg, the bargain gets better for the Ravens if that team is bad and stays bad. So there's a lot. It's very dynamic, and it's all over the place.
Did you specifically say lays an egg because ducks?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, let's get a couple themes here, which we've done, and let's lean into them.
I have another question about wages, etc., for NFL players. So, as far as I'm led to believe, in my limited knowledge of the NFL, players have shorter careers in the NFL as opposed to other sports due to the NBL, be it because of injuries, longevity, things like that. Is that true, or is that not really? Let's forget Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well, Tom Brady is an element that probably skews this average, although not much, because there's about 2,000 players in the NFL at any given time. He's obviously an outlier, and I believe that he's truly retired this time because he's actually filed the paperwork. But the average career span of an NFL player is about 2.5 seasons. Yeah. And I don't know, because I did not make that number. That's the number that's floated around. I don't know if that includes, I mentioned how the rosters start with 90 players and get cut down to 55 or 53, depending on the, I think it's next year that it goes to 55, but whatever. If those players never play again, are they part of that average at zero?
Skewing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I will tell you that there are not, again, he's widely an outlier.
Yeah.
Tom Brady. I will say that quarterbacks that are good generally tend to have longer careers because the league is more and more set up to protect those players.
Hmm.
And there are a handful of positions like kickers, long snappers, that are in very low contact positions that tend to have longer careers. Those players, if they're serviceable, will have 10 and 12-year careers. And it just gets to like some of those positions, the more benign position, like the long snapper, which if you don't know, which for the casual or not so casual fan or not fan at all, you'll have no idea who this person is. But when a team is kicking either a field goal or an extra point, the guy that takes the ball from the ground and flips it back to whoever's holding that, or when they're punting the ball, that's the long snapper. He is not the same
Okay.
guy that snaps the ball to the quarterback because it's a different move.
It's longer.
Yes, but it's a skill set that is in and of itself. The what happens is that there is a league minimum contract that goes up every year that you are, not only every year it goes up, but every year that you are in the league. It's kind of like if you work for in the States, I don't know if this exists where you guys are, but if you work for a government agency, there tends to be just like a pay scale. Okay, you're at level 6 and you've been here for 5 years, so this is what you get paid. It kind of works that way. So those guys that are not, they're important players, but they are not particularly dynamic players. Once they get up there in that pay scale, they don't. It's a position that they don't want to be paying a guy $2 million a year to do. So there's a natural kind of cutoff which fluctuates in that 12 to 14 year range where those guys end up just getting cut because the teams are only allowed to spend a certain amount of money every year on their roster.
Wage caps. Yeah.
So that guy gets cut because or gets forced into retirement, which look at $1 million plus a year over a 10-12 year career, when you are at probably the third least likely to be injured by contact position, it ain't a bad gig. And once you retire, you've got medical for life and things like that.
Oh, really?
So it's and there's a retirement plan and pension plan and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say that'd be, that's the sweet spot there.
Yeah. So would NFL, would the wages be higher or lower or on par with other sports, say NBA, sorry. NBA is the local basketball.
I mean, there's vast differences. Like if you look at Major League Baseball, one of the biggest differences between Major League Baseball is that those contracts are fully guaranteed for everybody.
Okay.
So if you were to see a player sign a 10-year, $200 million contract, and then he were to suffer a career-ending injury the next week, that team's paying him.
Yes, I've heard this actual story, I think.
And there's also other stories where like players and teams will, because of cash flow, will work out contracts where, hey, we're going to pay you X amount of money, but this chunk of it, let's say it's a $200 million contract. We're going to pay you, $100 million over this span of time, which is what we, the term of the contract itself. You're locked down with the team for X number of years. But this chunk, this other $100 million, we're going to pay you $2 million a year, or for the next 50 years or whatever it is. So there's a guy, Bobby Bonilla, who had one of these contracts with the New York Mets, who July 1st of every year, you may see this circulating in the internet, at least you will in the States, is Bobby Bonilla Day, because he's getting some jingle in his coffers from the New York Mets for a game that he hasn't played in, I want to say 20 years, because that's how he structured the contract. And that's crazy. I think there's still probably like 5 years left on that deal.
Really?
So,
wow.
He's not, and it's just a deferred payment sort of situation. So it helps the team with cash flow. Not that these guys don't have gobs of money, especially in major markets like New York, but, and they don't have a salary cap. The NBA not only has a salary cap for the team, but they also have a maximum payout per player per year. Like it would make no sense in the NFL to pay one player. We can do this. 50% of that year's salary cap. You wouldn't have a team around that player, but you contractually could without penalty, at least from the league. In practicality,
But also,
you'd have a shit team, but
can't you go over wage caps and just get fined?
You can in the NBA, and in Major League Baseball, they have something called a luxury tax. So they take the average. I think it's, and I don't know because I'm not an agent in any of these other sports. So
we're just talking off the cuff.
They take. Or I'm just saying for the fact checkers out there, I may be very imprecise in saying this. There's kind of a high low. And if you spend over that high number, and I think it's derived based on the average amount that each team spends, I could be wrong, then some of that money that you spend, you basically get taxed that by the league, and it gets redistributed to some of the what generally end up being smaller market teams, because a lot of the money.
You can say that they're shit teams.
Yeah, well, it's not just that they're shit teams. There is an element in all of these leagues where the ownership and the upper management is complete trash, and that resonates through. There are teams that stay near the bottom because they're being run poorly, and that exists in all the leagues, I believe. But there are also more of the money comes from advertising revenue in any of these sports than anywhere else. The money does not come from ticket sales. In fact, they probably profited more money in the COVID year that they didn't have fans in the stands than they did in other years, because they lose money running that part of the operation. Like, some of these teams, and it varies greatly by market, it varies greatly by the popularity of the team, but some of these teams will practically give tickets away to get you to come in and spend money on concessions and be there. The money comes from ad dollars. So, the big cities, the New York, the Chicago, Los Angeles, they're making money on their TV network and the advertising that they sell on their TV network. And it's sports in America tend to be a place where you have greatly captive audiences. So what I would spend, and I don't do this type of advertising, but if I were to advertise on television, what it would cost me to spend on an ad during a baseball game or a football game is substantially different than just some other random TV program.
Yeah. Of course,
if I wanted to roll out and pay for, if I wanted to go and advertise on what's that show on the CW, Chris Angel's shit show, and I feel bad for Lance. What's it called? Is that it? Is that it? Is that the official name?
That's the official title, I believe.
They might pay me to put ads on that program, and and it's all based on ratings and how many people are watching it. But you're paying for eyeballs. So if you've got a city like New York that has tens of millions of eyeballs watching versus a smaller city like Seattle, Washington, there's less people in Seattle. So there's less people watching the Mariners play on TV than the Yankees or the Mets. So that money goes into the coffers of the owners and the teams, because usually those owners own the TV networks as well. And then they've got more funny money to play with.
And then it also comes into demographics of wage and living class, because not all sports are shown on free-to-air TV. You got people who can and can't afford cable channels and things like that, so less advertising in these smaller teams, I imagine, is going to be a big factor as well.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing is that the U.S. is so screwed up that each state is different in the way. So you get taxed here, income tax, by the state and by the federal government. And the federal government's the same across the board, but each state has different ways that they generate revenue. And states like Florida and Texas and Nevada do not have state income tax for individuals. So if you are somebody like the LeBron James controversy from years ago, where he did that big special where he was saying what team he was going to go to, if you're signing a $100 million plus contract, and you're going to want to do that most likely in a state where there's one less tax with that money
Yeah,
coming out.
of course.
But also cost of living is different state by state.
Yep.
And, you know, it's a big clusterfuck.
Speaking of taxes, as a local resident in America, in the United States, sales tax, right?
I kind of felt like this was going to come.
It bothers the shit out of us.
So it's just like that. It's so let me break it down for you in a way that you'll understand no more now than you did before. There are some states where there is no sales tax.
Yes.
So
yes.
Delaware, which is my neighbor to the east, no sales tax. New Hampshire, which is up in New England near the parts of New Hampshire border Canada, no sales tax. There are states like New York and Illinois, which is where Chicago is. Say it, Brogan.
Chicago.
Where the sales tax is there's a certain element of the sales tax that goes to the state, and then there's a certain element of the sales tax which goes to the county, and which I think is the case anywhere that has sales tax. But those states, and I know that there are others, those are just two that I'm 100% certain do this, where each county can determine that portion of the sales tax. So in Illinois, if you are in one of the more western counties, the sales tax might be like 6.5%. But if you are in Cook County, which is where Chicago is, I think the sales tax is like 9 or 10% because that county has jacked up the sales tax. So you literally could be, and Nevada might be one of these states where the sales tax is whatever in Clark County, and it might be a little less in the outskirt counties. So it's a real shit show, and it's not the same. I mean, we, like, I'm not gonna lie, there's nothing to hide from it. It's very commonplace. As close as I live to a state that has no sales tax, if I am buying something like, and this used to be the example, but they're like a dime a dozen. But if I were going to buy, some expensive electronics, it used to be a TV, but now they're cheap as shit. But like
PlayStation 5,
I'm going to drive. Number one, I'm in a kind of a rural area where there's not really an electronics store that I would buy a PlayStation 5. But you're damn right, I'm going to pay 6% less to go over to Delaware and not pay the sales tax on it.
But how much fuel are you paying for driving over there?
I have an electric vehicle, so I don't pay for fuel.
Oh, damn!
Win-win.
Yeah.
Yes.
The license plate that I sent some time ago, that is currently a double entendre. Not only do I do magic, the license plate being tricky for those who don't recall or are not connecting those dots. It's an electric vehicle. So that's the second meaning of tricky there. And the joke that my wife hates is, should times get tough financially, it could be a triple entendre.
Yes. I feel an unscheduled, unannounced ad break coming on, which is kind of weird because it's meant to be unannounced and unscheduled, but there's a record scratch dropping in right.
To do it.
Oh no, this is not an ad what you think it's for. This is an ad for go out and buy yourself an electric vehicle. It is the way for you to circumvent sales tax in your local state and or county.
I always ask to buy an electric vehicle and they always quote me and it's like twice as much as the car I'm buying. I'm like, I want it, but not that much.
See, I don't think electric vehicles are the way to go. I think hybrids seem more economical and more friendly to the planet. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know. I don't understand the science of that, but I will tell you my story for how I ended up with an electric vehicle almost 2 years ago. And I had a larger SUV, not a huge SUV, but it had 3 rows of seats. And it was a Honda Pilot, which is kind of a mid-range sort of, normal person, not a luxury vehicle by any means. Very nice, very serviceable. And I had an issue with the transmission, and the transmission had to be replaced, and it was under warranty. And it got all taken care of, but I was kind of weary and hesitant about keeping this vehicle for much longer because warranty work, they're not getting paid the normal price that if they were gashing me for cash that I would have to pay. So whether it's true or not, I kind of had this thought in my mind that maybe I didn't get the greatest work, and I've got 15,000 miles left on this warranty, which means I've got 15,000 miles to get rid of this vehicle. And I had no particular problem with Honda. So one of the first places that I looked was to go back to Honda and replace the vehicle with another newer Honda. And the price on those vehicles between the time that I had purchased it probably 4 or 5 years before and what it was now had jumped up so much.
Wow.
And I was like, this is like in luxury automobile level. So the vehicles are something that I have a problem paying a lot of money for. Like, it's just some things I don't mind paying a shit ton of money for. Other things I'm like, why would I pay that much money for that? And I think everybody has their own value system in that regard of what they're willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money for compared to other things. So I ended up circling back around to the vehicle that I originally started to look at, and the prices were too high for me to stomach, being Volvos. Back when I first bought the Pilot, the price on the Volvos had not risen the same way that the Pilots had. In fact, the price to buy a comparable Volvo was very close to the cost of the Honda Pilot. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to buy one of these most likely. So I'm test driving them, and not even like, I've always had interest in EVs since they first came out. But my concern is that sometimes I travel. I had at the time, and I'm in the process of shutting one of these down. I had 2 offices, and they're about an hour apart. So one of my prerequisites to purchasing an electric vehicle was I needed to be able to get from one office to the other and back on a single charge.
Yeah.
So now, when they first came out, they had like, you could get like 75 miles on a full charge, which would have gotten me there, but not back. Not all the way back. Now you could get 200, 300, 400 miles on a single charge. So they're becoming much more viable. So the pricing was about the same for this vehicle. Plus I wasn't going to pay for gas. And then there was, and I don't know if any of this exists where you are, Brogan, but then they also have this tax rebate where if I buy one, they were going to give me, when I did my taxes, they were going to refund me $7,500. So it actually made that buying the quote unquote luxury electric vehicle less expensive than to go out and buy, replace what I had with a newer version of what I had. So not only do I not pay for gas, there's no oil in it. So there are no oil changes. There's really none of that, like, other than wiper blades and brakes and tires, there's no like routine replaceable maintenance. So overall, it's a ton cheaper. And, it was funny because, I don't know, 5-6 months ago when people were losing their mind over gas prices, I'm like, what's that?
Well, there you have it, folks. Speak to your local Volvo dealer today and get a good deal. And don't forget to ask them about that up to $7,500 cash rebate. Anyway, we should probably get back to the regular show. It was a Volvo that you settled for in the end, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Yes, I didn't want to have to re-record that, go to a Honda dealer. So, getting close to the end of this episode, Jobeth, have you got time to hang around for another recording, or do you have to get ready to go seabound?
I have time.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Cool. All right. Well, we can probably hit on some other, because like we need, as usual, guest in studio, virtual studio. Plan goes out the window. We just talk whatever. But I think next episode we want to hit some art talk at the very least.
Yeah.
But again, please plug anything you would like to, whether it's the podcast, shows upcoming.
Yeah, why not? So my shows all get updated at judgementalist.com. There are also, I had mentioned that the 2 runs in short succession of shows that I will be doing with the Mind Noodler. These are not all announced yet, so they're not on mindnoodler.com, at least not last time I checked. But it is, I think that my web guy makes it pretty clear if I'm doing a show with somebody else who they are on there. It's also the way to get the secret before they actually go on sale to the general public access to any of the Elkton Magic shows. because they all get listed on the judgementalist.com website. So if you are sneaky and want to know, like I had somebody that was on my website and sent me a message and was like, hey, I'm seeing the RJ show on your website, but it hasn't been announced yet. Can I buy those tickets? I'm like, you sure can. You found the Easter egg. So we sold those. We sold a handful of tickets to RJ's show before it even became public, which is cool. So for the most part, as they get booked, and I'm not going to put anything out there for anybody, but Diddleman's coming in July. So not yet on the website, but will be probably not by the time this airs because I'll be on a boat, but probably within a week of this airing. You'll be able to find those, but only on judgementalist.com for a period of time. If you want to hear about my travel antics, Big Sexy's travel antics, where he is in the world, that is Big Sexy Digital Nomad. So bigsexynomad.com, Big Sexy Nomad on any and all of the socials. We are playing around with this. We got 2 fun things that we're doing that we want to get input from our listeners. Instead of doing something like cheese bag mail or scoop mail, we are doing these audio postcards. So you can go to prankcall.me and it'll give you a little button to just record some message and send to us. I believe Wayne's done one of those before, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I don't know if it got used or not.
It did.
Yeah.
Oh, did it? Cool.
It did.
Awesome. I don't even remember what I said.
Again, world of podcasting. I don't remember what I said either, or what you said either. But usually they end up being things that give us something to talk about, questions. In our next episode, that this will drop Tuesday, correct?
Very correct. Yes.
Okay, so if you are listening to this as it comes out in tomorrow's episode of Big Sexy Digital Nomad, we are doing an audio postcard from a listener that did not submit the audio postcard. We found them asking the question in the wild. We snatched up the audio. We played the audio. We answered the question.
This sounds like there could be some legal ramifications of like someone not knowing about like these recordings
they'll find out tomorrow.
Or something. Okay, yep.
They'll find out tomorrow. And I have a feeling that we're in the clear on this one.
Okay, good. But yeah, definitely check out all the endeavors, but especially Big Sexy Digital Nomad. Have a listen. You can listen to me submitting a digital postcard. That's great. I don't know how I missed that. I'm gonna have to go through the whole back because it said you'll get notified when they get. Is it Acast or Anchor that you use? Whoever it was did not notify me. How dare they?
Oh, that might be a thing. Okay. We'll pick back up on that later.
But you can also reach out to us on all social medias at NicePodBud. Or you can go to our website, nicepodbud.com, contact form, that old chestnut, click the button, write in it. You know how to write. But you can also talk to Brogan directly. Oh, you know what? This works now, so I'm going to hit the outro. There we go. Outro music can play and everyone can hear it. It's been weeks.
I thought you weren't playing it on purpose.
No, of course I'm playing it on purpose. But yeah, you can reach out to Brogan at 7 billion needles.
And you can reach out to Wayne at Wayne Geo.
Now, you can reach out to us and talk to us directly, but we do much prefer if you talk to us as a conglomerate together, unless it's like you want to tell me secrets that you don't want Brogan to know. Like, Brogan is like, I don't like Brogan, and I don't want Brogan to know that. I know that's never going to happen.
Wishful thinking on your part, Jovenici.
Anyway, thanks for stopping by and having a listen.
As always, stay fresh, cheese bags.